Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours.
The Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, he went on to say that yes, an understanding has been reached after the two countries spoke to each other. The Pak DGMO had initiated the call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and an understanding was reached. And the DGMOs of the two countries will be talking again on the 12th of May. Now, let me go back to Venu Rajamony at this point. Ambassador Rajamony, dramatic things taking place. Just this morning, we were thinking that possibly this is going to be an all-out conflict. Then you had the DGMOs talking, and we believe that all of this has developed over the last few hours. The Foreign Secretary made a very brief statement. Why do you think it was so brief? And he has left by saying that the ceasefire has been agreed upon from 1700 hours today.
Parikshit, all along, I think it is the news channels in India which have been engaging in some kind of a war hysteria, while the statements from the Foreign Ministry, the Foreign Secretary, was always very sober. If you would see all the statements that was issued, the emphasis was on responsible behavior, on precision targeting, and on restraint, appropriateness, proportionateness, etc. Even today, when the Foreign Minister spoke to Secretary Mark Rubio, his response was to say responsible and measured actions will be there from India. If you look at the news reports coming out of Pakistan, the Pakistan Foreign Minister had also issued a statement saying that we are ready for a ceasefire if India would stop its attacks. So clearly, all the background discussions which have been going with the United States and with Saudi Arabia have played a role in bringing both countries towards this conclusion. Quite obviously, India in particular, but perhaps even Pakistan, does not want to give all the credit to the US or to Saudi Arabia. Therefore, India is pointing out and highlighting the fact that Pak DGMO made a call, and this is a result of that. And the Foreign Secretary's statement being so terse and so brief is just because details still have to fall in. A decision has been taken at a high political level to have a ceasefire. We do not want any more deaths. We do not want any more casualties. We do not want any more destruction. So the leaders want to put the ceasefire into effect immediately, and then look at what other details required to be sorted out. So that is what would happen in the next call of the two DGMOs.
So you're saying, sir, Saudi Arabia and UAE have played a role in the ceasefire?
Saudi Arabia and the US. Sorry if I misspoke.
Saudi Arabia and the US. And who do you think had a greater role here? Because it was a Saudi Minister of State who came to India unannounced, and he also went to Pakistan, and the message and mission was clear: de-escalation. So would you say it is the Saudis who've played the most important role behind the scenes?
I think both had a role to play, but clearly the US is the bigger and the more important partner for both India and Pakistan. You also saw that the IMF passed the proposal to release $1 billion to Pakistan. And this would have been possible only with US support. US is the biggest player, the largest shareholder within IMF. So the US holds a lot of cards of leverage over Pakistan in particular, but also with regard to India by virtue of the very close relationship that we enjoy. And ultimately, if you look at all the reactions which have come from countries across the world, everybody has called for de-escalation. Nobody wants to see an India-Pakistan conflict at this point of time or at any time. And every country has been hoping for this ceasefire.
All right.
The US has shown leadership in trying to speak to the two sides, bring them together and put it in place.
Let me now get in Ambassador Sajjanhar at this point. Ambassador Sajjanhar, would you agree that the IMF bailout that happened yesterday, a lot of people were quite disappointed by that, but we also have to understand the US has a disproportionate share of votes, economic might because of its size and size of its economy at the IMF. Somewhere that IMF bailout was a face saver for Pakistan.
Yeah, that definitely would have been the carrot that would have been sort of, dangled in front of Pakistan. Because, India had expressed its reservations earlier in the past also about this bailout, and the IMF needs to go in terms of where this money that is going to Pakistan is being utilized. So definitely that would have been a carrot in front of Pakistan. And in fact, Pakistan had, in the parlance that has been very common these days, had no cards. Pakistan had no cards. It couldn't have gone into an all-out conflict. It couldn't even have, continued with the hostilities, because look at its energy situation, look at its, the petrol, diesel, look at its economic situation. So it's really no position to have continued with this. So it was waiting, for some sort of a face-saving proposition. And that was the IMF deal that was struck yesterday. So I think it is, as far as India is concerned, what I was telling you earlier when, the Foreign Secretary's statement was played out, was basically we had outlined our position on the 8th morning, that we have done what we needed to do in terms of avenging and getting justice for the Pahalgam attack on the 22nd. We have done what we had to do, and now the ball is very much in Pakistan's court. And Pakistan, after that, started to retaliate, to escalate, and we have behaved in a very responsible manner. We have behaved in a very precise manner. We have not hit the civilians. We have hit their military establishments, as Pakistan has been doing, in the same domain and proportionately. So I think India's objectives have been very well served and realized.
All right. Ambassador Rajamony, if I can bring you in, if the IMF bailout was the face saver for Pakistan, what, according to you, would be the bailout for India? Or the face saver for India, sorry.
Well, as Ambassador Sajjanhar was pointing out, many of our immediate goals of this action probably have been achieved. We still need to look at it a few days, maybe a few months down the line, and review what was done, what was achieved, what was lost. But if the purpose was to send a political message to Pakistan that we will not take terrorist actions lying down, that we will retaliate, and we will retaliate with might, also that we have the ability to go into Pakistan and target with precision known terrorist hideouts and terrorists, we have sent that message loud and clear to Pakistan. However, the problem of terrorism per se still remains unresolved. This one action, or even the doctrine that many news sources are saying that India has newly adopted, which will see any terrorist action as a declaration of war, even whether this doctrine is going to stop terrorism towards India, there is absolutely no clarity. To stop terrorism, we need to convert India into some kind of a fortress India, like the US has made themselves post 9/11. We should ensure through our own internal security means that another Pahalgam never again happens in the future. That is the only way, or that is the best possible way of ensuring that more terrorist incidents don't happen within India. But going beyond that, we must establish some kind of a modus vivendi with Pakistan. A state of a complete stalemate in India-Pakistan relations, a complete lack of dialogue, even if it is informal or if it is back channel, and a complete stoppage to the search to find solutions to our problems and move to a better future has to continue and has to happen over the long term. So there are many questions that this whole action leaves unanswered as we move into the ceasefire, which is most welcome. The actual perpetrators of Pahalgam are still not captured or neutralized. Masood Asar is still out there. Hafiz Syed is still out there. Yes, we now have news reports coming, and I see news reports that some 5 terrorists were killed. But over 100 people were killed in that action, according to the Indian Defence Minister itself, which means there were also a large number of civilians there who probably became collateral damage. So I think a large number of questions are still unanswered, and only time will bring answers to them. Also, the use of drones in an India-Pakistan conflict, the use of missiles, which is for the first time, offers lessons to both sides for the future, and both sides will probably prepare to wage this kind of a war even more effectively through fresh rearmament. So I think problems between India and Pakistan are still far from being resolved and require a lot more persistent, consistent effort by both countries.
Right. And just to read this out for our viewers again, at around 3 p.m. this afternoon, talks were initiated, and after which there was a ceasefire declared on air, on land and sea. And the DGMOs are going to talk once again. And we had seen a very intense military operation between India and Pakistan over the last 2 days or so. What message do you think, Master Rajamony, has India sent out with this operation, with the manner in which it responded? Do you feel that this was, Operation Sindoor was a significant shift in India's policy vis-a-vis Pakistan-sponsored terrorism?
We will and we can retaliate to terrorist incidents. And as far as we are concerned, this is an act of self-defense permitted by the UN Charter. Many insiders in the government would tell you that even Balakot was not the first retaliation. Even before, there have been acts of retaliation within Pakistan, but the difference was that the government never publicized it. So Balakot was the first incident when we went public with it. And this, of course, Operation Sindoor takes it to a new stage where we not just publicized it, but we virtually engaged in hostilities bordering on war or near war or equivalent to war. We will have to find the right terminology to describe what happened. But the use of drones, the use of missiles are all a new element in it, just as much as India's capability to precisely target Murid K and other such places within Pakistan. So this certainly sends a message regarding India's capabilities. It also showed our air defense, though perhaps the first phase of drones which were sent to India was testing India's air defenses to see where our weaknesses lie. We have sent a message to Pakistan that we will not accept this, we will not take this lying down. I'm sure Pakistan has registered that message, but then we need to continue to try and find ways and means of dealing with the issues in India-Pakistan relations, most important of all, the terrorism which emerges from Pakistan and targets India.
All right. Let me also go across to Air Marshal Kapil Kak. Air Marshal Kak, thank you so much for joining us on the program. A very important development in light of the conflict between India and Pakistan over the last few days. What's your reading of the present situation? Donald Trump announced this on Truth Social, saying that I'm pleased to announce a full and complete ceasefire. The Indian government said that this was negotiated directly between the two countries. It was the Pakistani DGMO which initiated this call. What's your reading and understanding of the present situation?
I have been, over the last 3 days or so, mentioning on numerous channels that it's only a matter of days that one will find ways and means to somehow conclude this. You just mentioned that Donald Trump spoke of it, and the two sides then said this was directly between them. Frankly, I've taken part in 2 wars and have been following the India-Pakistan pretty closely. I believe that this is the role has been that of Donald Trump, Mohammed bin Zayed from UAE, and some friends of India and Pakistan who have worked hard through nimble diplomacy, back-channel work, and gentle nudges and pressures on two countries that this is not the way forward for you. It's also simultaneously a realization by both sides, I think far more by Pakistan than by India, because India has ushered in a new strategic and counter politico-military doctrine that thresholds of tolerance insofar as terror is concerned, a new threshold has been established. We will recall that this is also in the past, as was mentioned by the earlier panelist, about whether it was reaction to Uri or the surgical strikes and then Balakot. And so one knew last 6 years incidents weren't happening. It is just that a new military leadership in Pakistan felt very adventurous, was tied in a corner because of their own domestic pressures, that the decision was taken to do Pahalgam. No doubt in this anybody's mind that it was the work of the deep state in Pakistan through their proxies wherever they are. The third point, which is very, very important, is that we have now established that the situation as of 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever time the decision was made, that we have moved from a near limited conflict to edges of a limited conventional war. So from there, it was only a question of getting into a limited conventional war, as in the past in 1971, and that wouldn't have been good for either India or Pakistan. Another point of worthy of note is we never got boots on the ground, both sides. We had boots in the air, which is this new nature of war of just drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, not crossing boundaries through physical application of force, but indirect application of force through the air medium. And so, therefore, air power has acquired even greater salience compared to the last 25 years as it emerged as a powerful instrument of national policy. Very many lessons have been learned, but I think I will come to a stop here and say that disinformation and information war, for example, has assumed new proportions, and we were, unfortunately, both sides do not do too well in the information and communication strategy. There were very many gaps in that. That we have learned the lesson for urgent de-escalation when the situation tended to get out of control is one more lesson, and that for the international community, as they've always done, they've played their role to ensure that nuclear weapon powers cannot afford to escalate situation and manage the escalation ladder climb without a sense of total responsibility. I think these are some of the points. If you have any specific questions, I would be able to answer.
Right. Air Marshal Kak, the question that I'd like to ask you, India used almost all its air defense arsenal, our cutting-edge weapons, our fighter aircraft in this operation. We dominated the skies. We hit several key air bases in Pakistan over the last 2 days. We hit air radars, Chinese radar systems in Lahore, 8 bases in Pakistan this morning and early hours of this morning as well. What are the lessons that you feel India should take away from this high-intensity conflict which we've seen over the last 2 days?
I think you put a very thoughtful question on the table, Sanjay. I'd like to offer a very simple point. If we see India's grand strategy, what is India's grand strategy for a situation like this? It emanates from the fact that we are committed to war prevention as a strategy, because that is necessary for us to come to 2047 as a global power. And for a global power, behavior is very important. Strategic constructs to exhibit that behavior are also very much in place. So if you recall from the Prime Minister's statement right till today, the actions that were taken by India as a counter to the huge escalation by Pakistan in Baisaran and Pahalgam in Kashmir was that we will hit the terror infrastructure and send a signal that terrorism as a state policy is unacceptable to India. It is well at the threshold of tolerance, and punishment will be imposed. And that is precisely what we did on the 7th morning between 1:44 or 2 o'clock or so. 27 minutes, 24 targets specifically hit, and we sit back. And now it's for the other party to decide whether they want to escalate. What you said is very important. All this high intensity, low duration conflagration arose out of the fact that Pakistan chose to raise the level of escalation. So India had no choice but to keep climbing that escalation ladder, but have the control entirely in its own hands. That's what happens in escalation matrix. The dynamics are such that a superior power has to control that climb. And that is what India has actually sent as a lesson to Pakistan, the world, and the region, that it will behave like a responsible power, but it will use all the might at its disposal. As you rightly pointed out, range of weapons have been employed. The lesson for the others is that excellent planning has ensured that our air defenses, the finest lesson is that quality of the air defense of India has been very, very high quality. And the lesson now for the government is that given the past use of force over the last 3 days, we have to continue the process of ensuring that India's air power is not allowed to decelerate in its quality, in its impact in terms of the strategic outcomes that it will achieve for the country's national interest in a given zone.
Right.
Yes.
Marshal Kak, one more question that I would like to ask you. Yes, India was a stronger power in this. We took at least a week or 10 days to respond militarily to the Pakistani terrorgrams after the Pahalgam attack. We did not do any knee-jerk reaction. We must have clearly weighed our options diplomatically, economically, militarily, and then responded. We had probably worked out how much this is going to escalate or what Pakistan could possibly do. When you go into a situation when you carry out drone attacks, missile attacks on terror camps in Pakistan, in the territory of an adversary, there is bound to be a cost of war, and that happened. So India must have calculated that. Do you feel that somewhere the United States knew that it held the purse strings to Pakistan, for Pakistan, and the IMF bailout that happened last night? Many felt that it was sad that the US allowed that to happen, but that possibly could have been the key that United States had to stop things and make Pakistan commit to this ceasefire, because it was the Pakistani DGMO which initiated talks.
No, frankly, this would have been worked out behind the curtains. I don't think a Pakistan DGMO would have spoken to the Indian DGMO, and that would have been the beginning of the process of this wise decision to call off this conflict. I'm not a party to that thought process. Why do I say that? You raised two very, very crucial points. One is that why did it take us 10 to 12 days to react? Just go back to Balakot. It was a much simpler operation, very, very minutely limited to a few buildings, not far from the border and line of control, and yet we took that time. Why do we take that time? Let me assure you and your viewers that our armed forces at the apex level would have computer simulated and war gamed every scenario that you have seen over the last 85 hours or so. Every single scenario. So what this time was to put in place those mechanisms. If this happens, what do we do? If this happens, what do we do? So there are at least 20, 25 scenarios below the conventional war threshold. They would have war game, they would have been ready with it, and therefore also give time for the international community, as also Pakistan, to think, look, you will be expecting it somewhere. And then Pakistan had to get on greater level of alert than us, because they knew there would be a reaction. And we also knew, I have no doubt in my mind, I don't think any thinking Indian would have think Pakistan would have done nothing. Pakistan would react, and we expected that reaction. So I think the lesson is a textbook lesson for India as also for Pakistan. I think two other points you made is between the application of force and the initial reaction, holding the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, reducing those diplomatic moves were preparatory to what Pakistan was messaged about the way force was coming its way. What that force would be, where it would be, how it would be, is a completely different set of questions. But I think both countries have been wise, because I said that the effect of this war would be Pakistan would have far greater consequential impact than India would have.